Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification button because this episode is going to blow your socks off. Today we're talking about business. We're going to talk about military transitioning, and we're also going to talk about precious metals and how important they are because your dollar eventually is not going to mean shit. So we're going to be talking about that with my friend Ben, military veteran, and now he's helping people change their lives by helping them get into business for themselves and create their own destiny. Ben, welcome to the show, my brother. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very good. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's my honor, and I want to give a big shout out to Trevor. Without Trevor, we would have never met. So if you guys don't know Trevor, you guys need to get you guys hooked up. Amazing dude. So thank you, Trevor. So Ben, talk to us a little bit about, okay, first of all, because you're a veteran, correct?
Correct.
Your son was a veteran.
Yep.
And we lost him to the 22, but you're still here. So what is your definition of resiliency now that you've been through the whole gamut?
I think that, my biggest sense of resiliency is, my son had over 200 people at his celebration of life. And it was pretty amazing for, a 26-year-old to have 200 people show up because he kept in contact with them every day. And they came from far and wide to pay their respects. And it dawned on me at that moment that he had such an influence on the world, that he was such a big spirit, that I had to find something to do that could match that and allow me to help people the way he helped people. Because I just felt that that was a legacy of his that needed to be continued. And so, I'm doing that today. As best I can to bring all of my knowledge and all of my experience together to help those that are transitioning, out of the military into the civilian world to consider their options as they move forward. I hope that experience will at least enlighten them to what the possibilities are before they get wrangled into the corporate world again.
All right. So, like I said, you're a veteran and you served our country proudly. So give us a quick down and dirty about who you are and how you became the man that you are today.
So I, like most of us, left high school trying to find my way in the world. I immediately, joined the Air Force and began my career. It took me to a lot of different places, and I've seen a lot of parts of the world. And, from there, I also pursued a career in IT from my training in the Air Force. And after 35 or 32 years in IT, I realized that my goal had been accomplished. And so I separated from corporate America, knowing that there had to be something else in the world for me to do. So I began my journey looking. And it only took me a couple of years to find something that I was passionate about. Not that I was necessarily looking for it, but it turns out it was a natural evolution of a hobby of mine. See, I'm a metal detector and a gold prospector, small scale, of course, but I got into that treasure hunting mode and learned a lot about it over the course of 30 years. So when I had an opportunity to get into precious metals and understood what they were all about, I started realizing that, there's an education that's been kept from us in high school. I mean, a lot of us have never been taught how to manage wealth. Where everybody's told, get home insurance, get auto insurance, life insurance, health insurance, but nobody ever told us about wealth insurance. And that's where you're actually holding an asset. And not just in a digital form, but in a physical form. Because when the computers go down and the currencies are failing, The only thing you're going to have left is precious metals and other items that you have around the house. And you're going to get for it what somebody's willing to pay for it. Gold and silver has been around for 5,000 years, so everybody has a general understanding of how to negotiate with it. And spot price keeps the world honest every day.
All right, so let me ask you, how many years did you put in the Air Force?
9.5 years.
So, okay, because normally, you hit that 9.5 year, 10-year mark. They say you're in for a nickel, you're in for a dime. What made the decision of not doing it, making it a career when you're almost halfway there?
There were a number of factors. One of them was the career calling. Having transitioned from the Air Force to Air National Guard, I was working both a civilian job and in the military. And when the civilian job market began to decline, I had to seek another employment opportunity. And unfortunately, that landed me in Montana. And there wasn't an opportunity to continue the military career at that point. And of course, the pay won out at that point in my life. So I made that decision to get out of the military at that time.
So now, like we talked about before we got on camera, a lot of people, like for me, I got thrown out for being a drug addict the first time, got back in after 9/11 and did everything I could to become the ultimate soldier. Served 23 years, got hurt, and you can't see, you can't shoot, we don't need you. And they medically discharged me Memorial Day 2012. And that was the day that I attempted suicide because I got so wrapped up in being Sergeant Kaufman, I didn't know who Richard was. Right. And I had a hard time with transitioning. What was your transitioning like? Even though you knew you were getting out, was it a tough transition, or were you just like, all right, on to the next thing?
No, it was tough. Like we talked earlier, the camaraderie, that discipline, the opportunity, the missions, the responsibility, the equipment and the people that you were in charge of. It's a different world when you get out into, civilian life. They don't just hand you a team of people, and they don't just hand you equipment that you're responsible for maintaining. It's almost like you're back at square zero, and you got to earn the right to be in that position again. And it literally took me 20 years to earn that right to be in that position that I had been in 20 years earlier. And I struggled with it because it's not easy to obtain that, managerial director rank in the civilian world when there's other people competing for it. And the real problem I think a lot of us have is self-confidence, because we have so much of it and we know what we're capable of. We get very discouraged when people don't give us the opportunity to deploy those skills.
And okay, now like I've talked to a lot of different people and I just got finished listening to a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko and Leif Babin, and they talk about that same thing. How a lot of us will get out of the military, say we're colonel, lieutenant colonel. Now you're back on the street, you're taking a new job, and you're back at square one, but you think you're still the lieutenant colonel. And even though you have all that experience, you still have to be able to humble yourself and realize, like you said, I got to learn all this. It's a whole new different word, new different words, new different culture. I got to learn all this all over again. And sometimes we just don't want to start at the bottom. We want to start at the top like when we left. And it doesn't happen that way 90% of the time in corporate America.
Right. Yeah, we feel like we earned our way into that echelon, and it's a completely different chain of command. I mean, most of the time in a corporate setting, you're going to find that their chain of command is completely broken, and there's too much competition going on. And basically, if you threaten anybody up above, their first thought is, you're coming after my job, I need to get rid of you. And that started to become a really big problem around the age that people start turning 50, because companies don't want people that are at that age in the organization because they feel as if they are a threat, or they're too expensive. So,
Yeah.
that's.
And I've talked to a lot of CEOs, CFOs, and a lot of times they'll get a resume from a guy or a girl that's just getting out of the military, and they're overlooking it. It's nothing but a bunch of acronyms, and they look at it and their eyes glaze over, and then they just push it into the circular file. And so I think a lot of veterans, we need to hire somebody that can put a resume together. They don't care that I was a tank commander or tank platoon commander, but they might care that, I was in charge in $100 million worth of property, also managing 8 to 12 different people. But I think if we put, I was a platoon leader and a tank commander, they're like, what does that got to do with the stock market? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I was in that situation myself. I was working for a major airline, and they had done a big transformation project, and they were trying to figure out how to get the point across of what we had accomplished. And they wrote an article called The Cinderella Story, where they took a broken, cargo system and transformed it into a lucrative, profit generating center for the airline. And, it had exactly those descriptions in it, as far as, how much cargo, how much they, increased the load capacity, and all the benefits that came along with the project. And, when you were describing, how to rewrite a resume, people need to look at it from, what is a business looking to do? Reduce expenses, increase profits, and bolster their staff. So you have to give those terms, military terms, in a description that the civilian world can understand.
And I love that. And, and like, Jocko was talking about, it's not, when a lot of people, they go for a job, they're looking and saying, okay, what is this job going to do for me? But if you go in there saying, okay, what kind of value can I add to this, company? Because I believe, and like I said, I've talked to many people in corporate America, you should be generating at least 10 times to 100 times what they're paying you every year. That's the kind of metrics that they're using. So a lot of people go into, they go in there. All right, well, I want, what are you going to pay me? First of all, I want this benefit. I want that. And the guy across the table is looking at him like, what are you going to do for us? What value do you bring what do you bring to the table? And so I think if we could switch our mindset, instead of what can they bring to the table, except what I can bring to the table for you, I think we'd have a much better chances of getting hired right out the gate.
Right. And a lot of that depends on, the position that you're hiring into. A lot of us are out there just really grasping at straws, taking anything that's available if we can get through the interview process, rather than creating the position that we want to be hired for. And so, when you're reading, different job openings at companies, kind of got to read between the lines, why is this entire department being filled with positions that may, give you more insight into the company as to, what problems they're trying to solve.
And I totally agree. Now, I find that if I'm going for a job, which thank God I don't have to do anymore, I created my own. But if I'm going to a company, I'm going to do research on that company. I'm going to find out what the company is about, who is who in the offices. I'm going to get to know everything I can about that company. So when I do meet with the CFO or CEO, whoever's hiring me, and they, I go sit down in front of them, I'm going to be like, Tony, how have you been? I see you've been with the company for over 25 years. I think sometimes you have to be that way, because in order to know where the company is going, you got to know where they've been. You know what I mean? Instead of just saying, oh, I heard you were hired from an IT guy. so there's 12 other guys that are waiting in the other room. You have to make yourself, marketable. So talk about that, is making yourself marketable before you leave the military.
Well, again, when we talked earlier before the call, and I really believe that making yourself marketable should be more of, how can I go into business for myself? So the question is, what skills do you possess that enable you to be a business owner? Going out and getting a job is just surrendering yourself to the corporate world, before you even give yourself a chance to reap the benefits of working for yourself and building a legacy that will hold you through a pandemic. So many people found themselves sitting at home because they weren't needed anymore. So the question is, how do we position ourselves so that what we deliver is needed all the time, so that we never have to worry about being unemployed or not having an income, because we've developed something that's helping people, that's a necessity in their life, and it always puts food on the table for us. But making yourself marketable, if you do decide to go get a job, taking a skills assessment inventory for both options is very important. What are your strengths? Do I have enough strengths to be the CEO of my own company? Or am I more of an integral part of somebody else's operation? Going into business for yourself does not exclude partnerships. You may find that you have a piece and somebody else has a piece, and together, they're interlocking and a force to be reckoned with. So, there's a lot of options out there, and that's the beauty of what I do, is I help people explore those options, and I set in motion a course of action that allows them to gradually step into it with a plan of attack.
Yep, and I agree with you. Now, I also agree with something that we talked about earlier is, they'll teach you this, they'll teach you that, but they don't teach you entrepreneurship.
Right.
They don't teach you real money skills. They don't teach you the difference between, appreciation and depreciation. They're when you go to school, because my son is he's just about to be a senior in college, and he's graduating, and he wants to be a marine biologist. And he said, "Can you give me some advice?" I was like, "Yeah, you need to get on LinkedIn and connect with as many marine biologists as you can, because that's the way you get into the ecosystem."
Right.
But unfortunately, our school systems, our colleges, they're not teaching you to be an entrepreneur. They're teaching you to be an employee.
Correct.
And there's a big difference between an employee's mindset and an employer mindset. You know what I mean? So do you agree with me that they should be teaching more about entrepreneurship, more about money, what real money is, what real wealth is? There's a difference between being rich and having wealth.
Correct.
Big difference. So please talk, drop us a little knowledge about talking about stuff like that should be talked about nowadays.
So I think that unintentionally, they're giving us a crash course in that education. When you send the workforce home for a year and a half, 2 years, and give them no alternatives, they're going to start getting edgy, and they're going to start looking for something to do. And I think that a lot of Americans have gone out and hit the entrepreneurial circuit and brought forward some activities that they were either passionate about or curious about. And a lot of them are making great success with the things that they're trying. I think the other question you asked me was, so I lost my train of thought there for a second. Help me out there.
No, it just, they're not teaching us how to be entrepreneurs.
Right. So
they're teaching us how to be employees and help the other guy get rich.
Right. And a lot of that's just leverage, right? I mean, as a corporation, they're leveraging the hours of the people that they have working for them. And the same goes for, entrepreneurs. You can either get, 100% of your efforts, or you can get 1% of a lot of people's efforts. And, that leverage helps you to expand further and greater, to be able to market whatever product or service you have to offer. And that's why, a lot of people turn to, the term network marketing or affiliate marketing, is because you can earn a little bit of everything that's sold rather than trying to get 100% of one thing that's sold. So the reason the school system teaches us to be employees is because, those corporations, and I would really love to say manufacturers, but they're not anymore. They're corporations. A lot of them don't even make anything themselves. They outsource it. And so our corporations become a management facility for things that are manufactured elsewhere in the world. And so our money is really leaving our shores rather than coming into the shores. And that's how the economy starts to wind down. And we're seeing the effects of that with inflation today. The prices are going up. The value of our purchasing power of our dollar keeps going down. It's more and more at the pump, more and more at the grocery store, and there's, not a lot we can do about it. Given that the Fed has printed more money in the last 2 years than they have since 1913 combined, is an incredible act of financial instability, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Before we hop on, because I want to really talk, I want to dig deep into today's markets and what's going on. But I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, our sponsors on the show are 100% veterans, 100% of the times. Guys, if you own a company and you want swag for your company, like t-shirts, hats, Really Designs is an amazing company, military owned, and they also give a portion back. Everything that they do for your business goes to help veterans. But if you buy one of my t-shirts, hats, coffee mugs, whatever, 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with PTSD and homelessness. So if you guys like t-shirts, hats, like this t-shirt says, "Today I decided," and the back says, "This t-shirt saves lives, ask me how." It's just a way to get people talking about mental health. So if you guys are interested in having your own, get your own logos on shirts, check out right down below, Really Designed. And also, if you want to start your own show, StreamYard is going to give you some free money to help you start your own show. So if you guys are interested in having your own show, just write StreamYard down below. But now, Ben, I want to talk about, we mentioned, how bad, things are going. But in my opinion, with the people that I'm talking to, because I'm talking to the uber successful, the uber rich people, things have never been better. Because, this little box that we're talking in right now, your business, like I was with GNC for over 30 years. When I opened the door at 9 and went home at 9, the business stopped. Now business is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the world. And digital marketing, if you're not on digital and your business isn't on digital, you're losing a lot of money. So I think we're now in the best of times. If you're an entrepreneur, I think we're definitely in the best of times. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree with you. The timing has never been better to get a hold of people via the internet. It's not even about paid advertising anymore. Just the social economic status of influencers such as yourself, just being able to have an audience, get in front of an audience, talk about what you have to offer. It's wide open. It's easier than ever. You can throw in a little bit of advertising on top of it, and that's just the cream of the crop. But developing a following having some social influences on the internet, just, and branding yourself. You have to have a brand for yourself.
Yeah.
People need to know, like, and trust you before they're going to make any decisions on whether or not to do business with you. So getting the message out there, letting people know what you're doing is very important. And sponsorship, whether it's you're sponsoring somebody else or somebody's sponsoring you, that's just more of that leverage that we're talking about. Everybody's trying to recommend something to somebody, and it's like you're going to listen to the people that you're following every day.
Yeah. Now, also, I want to talk about I about 5 years ago, I must have been up at like 3 a.m. and I'm watching the commercials for silver and the dollar and gold. I can't remember the actor's name. And me and my wife, we crack up all the time when he came out and says, "I love the feel of gold." And it's amazing how that stuck with me. And then I started doing some research, and and I even talked to my mom and dad, and I'm like, "Mom, you know that our money is not backed by gold? We were taking off the gold standard. There's nothing in Fort Knox. That's bullshit. There's nothing there. Our money absolutely means zero, zip, zilch." And that's why I think precious metals are so important, especially capacitors, all this stuff that are for our phones, chips for the cars. It's all, a lot of it's all precious metal. So talk about that, to what's going on that people don't see, the behind the scenes of precious metals.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that people don't understand is, precious metals come from the ground. It's a mining operation. And, I want to make sure that people are very clear when we talk about spot price. Spot price is the amount of money that a miner can expect to get to put in the effort to dig it out of the ground. That's the first person in the chain that gets paid. And that's the amount of money that they're handed when they, refine it, dig it out of the ground, melt it down, hand it to the assayer, and they put it on the scale and they pay them spot price. From there, everything that happens to the silver and the gold, there's a premium put onto it to refine it further, to mint it into a coin or some kind of bullion artifact, and to get it to the wholesalers, get it to the retailers. I mean, even when you see the commercials at night, they're going to say as low as you'll get it for this price. Well, that's not spot price. That's spot price plus some premium to cover the expenses of that commercial. So, everybody says, well, spot price is only, $19 an ounce for silver. It's like, yeah, but you can't buy it for that. You're going to pay a little bit more because there's premiums on top of it. And then there's also the education, right? I mean, bullion comes in many forms. And education is a big part of getting into the process of buying and selling gold and silver. And so I just highly recommend that people get educated on what bullion is all about. And for those that are interested, we can talk about, some opportunities for education that are available. But then there's also, the world of collectible coins. There's a lot of people out there that like to collect different things, and coins are just another one of those things that people collect. So we talk about the 5 things that the wealthy invest in to protect their wealth and their assets. It's, exclusive real estate, art, collectibles, gold, and other precious metals, right? So those are the things that the wealthy invest in. Well, some of the collectible coins are actually works of fine art. So, it's another one of those assets that the wealthy use to protect their wealth. So, yeah, the precious metals. Once you understand the spot price and the premiums, it's very, very nice to be able to hold these metals in your hand and know that, there's value sitting within reach, that if anything happens to you, I know people that have taken these gold coins and made necklaces out of them, and they wear it wherever they go because they know that in a heartbeat, they can take off that necklace, go to a jeweler, go to a coin shop, cash it in, and from anywhere in the world, they can get a plane ticket home. Or they know that they are at least, have an economical backup with them while they're traveling. It's a little insurance policy. So those are just some things to think about when it comes to gold and silver.
Yeah, but like I always tell everybody, if you're going to invest in something, make sure you do your homework.
Right.
Like for me, I was told by his company is worth $20 billion right now, and we were talking about this, and he said, make sure that you're putting in the reps, make sure you're putting in the work, make sure, like, if you're going to get into, whatever it is, if it's NFTs, crypto, whatever it's going to be, don't go for the shiny shit. He said, because it's just shiny shit. So aluminum is shiny too if it doesn't do anything. He said, but you got to put in, if you want to be successful at whatever you do, I think they call it the 10,000 hour rule. And I think if you're going to invest in something, you should at least put 1,000 hours into the study of it. Like if I know that I'm going to buy, say if I'm going to buy silver, I know for the next 6 months, I'm going to be getting my paper every day. I'm going to be getting, I'm going on my computer. I'm going to be watching every little thing. I'm going to start creeping on that one thing before I buy. And I know a lot of people say, well, you got to buy now. Yeah, but if I don't know why I'm buying it or what I'm buying, it doesn't matter if I buy it now, if it just drops like a stone, like NFTs just did last month, or crypto, right?
Yep. So I did my research. I've put in my hours to learn the education. And so I'll give your listeners a little tip. So there's something called a gold and silver ratio. And that's basically for every ounce of gold, how many ounces of silver does it equate to? So right now, our gold to silver ratio equates to about 84 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold. And so if you've looked back over time at the gold and silver ratio, you'll see when, it's been over 80-1, people tend to invest in silver. And then over time, if you look back, when it gets down to like 24-1, people tend to sell silver and buy gold. And if you look at it as, always trying to achieve the higher, holdings of gold, then the rest of the things we invest in, art, silver, whatever else it may be, is all vehicles to acquire more gold. Gold is easier to hold. It's a more condensed form of value. So, when people were transitioning from Europe to the new land, they brought their little chests, and those little chests just had gold in it because it was smaller, more condensed, and easier to carry, but it held a lot of value so that when they arrived, they could afford the things they needed to purchase. So, I look back on the generations of those that have come before us and start to, understand the handing down from generation to generation, the family wealth. And I'm sure that the education to manage it came along with it that we're not given today from our educational system. And so that's why I'm on a mission to help people learn that, so that they can start leaving a family legacy this generation.
All right. So now I got a question. This is just, just a general question.
Sure.
I worked at GNC for, over 20 years, and every night, at the end of my shift, I would buy whatever old coins I seen. I would get the dollar coins, buy them and put them home in my piggy bank, and, or go through pennies and looking for wheat pennies, all that good stuff.
Right.
But now, like, since
the internet,
COVID hit, now there's a coin shortage. Where'd all the coins go if people aren't out shopping? What, so I don't know if you know anything about it, but I would love to know that if nobody is shopping, we should have a plethora of coins. But
Right.
now everywhere I go, oh, we don't have exact change, and I'm like, where'd all our quarters go? Where'd all our change go?
So there's two things historically. I can tell you that when people start to get fearful, pandemic, right? They start hoarding things. Now, the problem is people don't understand what it is they're hoarding. I mean, I don't have one here. Oh, maybe I do. If your audience just reaches in their pocket and takes out just, a general quarter, right? You're going to see that little copper lining in the center of it. And that's called a clad coin. And the reason it is because there's no silver in it. It's nickel wafers on top of a copper core. So the government has devalued the money by changing the contents of the currency itself. So in 1964, any coins before 1964 are only 90% silver. It was, there's other metals in there to keep it hardened for circulation. But if you were to take a handful of, say, quarters from 1964, they would put it on a scale, weigh it, and whatever 90% of spot price is what you would get for that silver content that is in that pile. So the process of devaluing or a debasement of a currency, is the first step in, physical management. So from there, the problem is they're looking to get rid of the cash in the fiat currency cash. Yep. So before they get rid of the dollar bills, they had to start pulling the coins out of circulation so that there wasn't something that people could hold in their hand and transact with on the side when they go to the digital currency, because they want everybody on the digital currency. So the first thing they had to do was pull the coins from circulation. And so now the only thing that they were left with is people's collections at home. And that's why they keep telling you, bring your coins in. We're short on coins. We're trying to siphon all the coins out of people's piggy banks because they don't want you to have that. So once you start bringing it in and giving it away, then they keep extracting that from the market. Once all the coins are in, or as much as they think they need, then they can bring down the dollar bill and go to a digital currency. Now they can track everything you spend money on, and they can authorize what you can spend money on.
Okay, so then 1964, 90%.
Right.
1965, maybe 10%, maybe.
Zero. There was no silver after 64.
So where did the silver go?
It was determined.
Just say, okay, I'm sure they just didn't be like, all right, guys, we're going to stop mining. We don't need it anymore.
No, it actually, it went into the COMEX bars, and they were stored at the facilities, the banks. I mean, this is the asset the banks hold to shore up their bottom line. The banks are still backed by gold and silver because they have to have, that asset on hand. And so that's where the manipulation came in. We all believe that gold and silver prices are being manipulated, and we're, we believe that soon we will see that manipulation end, and the prices of gold and silver will obviously have to go up if that's the case. So, there's a lot of pressure right now to buy silver to bring that manipulation to an end. And that's why we're recommending, that people take a good look at it as an alternative form of payment and transactions at this time, because everybody should have a little bit of gold and silver, in their portfolio or in their possession, so that they have something to feed their families with.
All right. So now last couple of questions now. Tell us what you do and how we can find you and how we can support your mission.
So I believe that my mission right now is to help people that are looking for an entrepreneur opportunity to find and do something that's going to be profitable for them. There's so many things out there. I have found something that works for me, and I believe it's more of the process as to why it works for me. But I'm willing to teach that to anybody that's looking for an opportunity like that. And I'm also an expert with online digital marketing. So I help people find the tools and help them get set up and configured to be able to use simple tools to get the message out. We've always heard build a list and the fortunes in the follow-up. So I help people with the automation that makes that happen. And I've set up hundreds of people with these tools. So it's not something that's hard. And a lot of people are afraid of technology. So that's where I offer my services to help, educate them and help them get it configured so that they are at least up and running, usually within 48 hours.
Okay. So now is this a course? Is it a book? What is it?
No, it's really just a one-on-one mentorship. I mean, I'm really about helping people understand and answer questions. A lot of people tell me that I break things down in a simple manner so that, they understand what the objective is, without having to get into the details and talking too much about technobabble. So I'm really about, helping people get started. Really the best way to get a hold of me straight up is just benrusk.com. And we can go from there.
Now, are you also all over social media like Instagram or
no,
Facebook?
I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, on some local sites like Alignable.
I love Alignable. A lot of people don't even know about Alignable. I love Alignable. We actually won the North Arlington Small Business of the Year in 2022 on Alignable. I love Alignable. Truly amazing. Very powerful tool. Not much people know about it, but it's an amazing tool. Yeah. So Ben, brother,
if you're looking for a local network connection, Alignable is really good.
Yeah. Ben, brother, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that Trevor actually hooked us up. And I'm truly humbled and grateful. And I'm going to be picking I'm going to be tickling your ear a little bit because I want to know a little bit more about what we're talking about. Because for me, I'm in the process of building my wealth, but I don't have time to do the 10,000 hours of research. So now I find people that have already done the 10,000 hours of research and I get their advice. Because I was once told, and my wife laughs at me all the time, you don't know what you don't know, so hire somebody that does. And I'm definitely going to be bending your ear, my brother.
I welcome it and look forward to our conversations.
All right, guys. So make sure you reach out. He's very easy to get in touch with. He answers you right back on Facebook, which is amazing. He did great customer service. Also on LinkedIn. You send him a message, usually within an hour or two. Send your message back. So check them out everywhere. Guys, I want to thank you so much for everything you do. You guys always show up. And like my t-shirt says, today I decide. You guys decide whether you want to be poor or whether you want to be wealthy. You make the decision. Because today I decide, those are the three most important words in the English language. You decide whether to be rich or poor. That's up to you. Guys, I love you. I will check you out tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment. And remember, like I always say, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. I love you guys. Ben, have an amazing week, brother.
Thank you. You too.